Hello friends, welcome to the MARE Podcast. Before we get started, you can find our podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts and YouTube. Don't forget that you can find more about the MARE project at www.marehamburg.com, and you can support the project and this podcast through Patreon. All the links are in the description. Enjoy! Hello friends, welcome to another episode of the MARE Podcast, brought to you by the Honor Frost Foundation. It is a pleasure to welcome Emma on the podcast today. Hello Emma, welcome to the podcast.
Hi everyone, thanks George for having me.
It is a pleasure. So Emma is a DPhil student of Maritime Archaeology in the University of Oxford. She has been a master's student at Oxford as well in the past, and she did her undergrad at the University of St Andrews in Scotland. But here she is today to tell us all about her research and about her career so far in academia. So would you please introduce yourself a bit more extensively than I did?
Sure, absolutely. So as George said, my name is Emma, and I'm from Connecticut in the States, but I decided to come to the UK for my academic experience. I decided I wanted to be an archaeologist quite early, and my family is half Greek, so I was quite interested in classical archaeology. And the States has some absolutely wonderful archaeology programs, but the ones I was looking at were mostly focused on colonial, native, or South American, Central American archaeology. So I decided to look more towards European schools. St. Andrews was great. They were part of the United States Common App, actually, which was quite interesting. So it made it quite easy for Americans to apply. And I had an absolutely wonderful experience there. My first summer, I was 17 and spent the whole summer in Rome excavating under my professor, Andrea Brock, who was absolutely wonderful. And St. Andrews just really opened my eyes to how much I loved fieldwork. That professor very much encouraged me to go into maritime archaeology. My whole family, we're all scuba divers. My sister, she's a marine biologist. She works with invasive species down in Florida. My brother dives, my mom dives. The whole family's into it. And so I actually realized that maritime archaeology was more feasible for me after a back injury that I had when I was in undergrad. I was a competitive volleyball player, and I suffered some spinal injuries and had to have 2 surgeries. And at first, I was really scared for my future as an archaeologist, in the field, bending over, in the trenches, things like that. It can be quite a physical, demanding job. And that doesn't mean that, if you can't do the physical work, that archaeology isn't for you. You can do conservation, museum work, academia, whatever you'd like. But for me, as someone who I really like to work with my hands, I like to be out in the field. It was quite devastating. But when I started physiotherapy in the water, it kind of clicked to me that the water was an environment where I could still be my physical best self and work with my hands and do what I love with archaeology. So that's what led me to maritime. And after that, I applied for my master's at Oxford and had an amazing time there. Got to do some amazing diving on a shipwreck as my thesis, and I'm back here for my DPhil.
Nice. Okay, we'll talk about it. No, it's very nice to. I think there's different ways and how people come to maritime archaeology. One of them is I really like the sea, or I was a diver. And I think you belong in that group of people where I think I belong in that group as well, where I was like, I really like the sea, so I will do that.
Yes.
That's great. That's fantastic to hear. All right, so then you're in. So did you do a master's at St Andrews? A master's. Sorry, I want to say a thesis. Tired.
A thesis, yes, I did. And it was kind of maritime themed. I looked at a collection of, I guess it was very maritime themed. I looked at a collection of shipwrecks that were Phoenician, and I was very closely examining the artifacts that had the most evidence of being used on board the ship as, personal items from the crew. So we had more courseware, pottery, as opposed to things that would have been for sale. We had some artifacts that had some little inscriptions on them, kind of graffiti. And I was just piecing together a bit of what the crew's life may have looked like through artifacts on Phoenician vessels. It was a very grand idea. There's not as much evidence as an undergrad can access as you might think, um, but I really enjoyed the research. I loved thinking about the people on board the wrecks, and it definitely inspired me to continue with maritime.
Oh yeah, I mean it was a very maritime topic, very very much.
Yes.
So yeah, you were maritime from the get go. So anyway, let's jump to the present. And so now you're a DPhil student at the University of Oxford. So would you like to just give us a summary of your project, what you want to do, what you plan on doing on this course?
Sure, absolutely. So my thesis is on the northern anchorage of King Herod's Harbor in Caesarea. And we're using the northern anchorage specifically because it hasn't really been surveyed in the past. So the main harbors attracted a lot of attention in the scholarly world. There's been plenty of surveys, excavations, works. And the southern anchorage has recently gotten a bit of attention because they found some Bronze Age objects there, which is really cool because the harbor, when it was constructed, it was quite a flat, sandy area that people thought was really of no use as a harbor beforehand. It was considered a really great engineering marvel to create a harbor there because there was no natural inlet or protection for ships. And so the fact that the southern anchorage has Bronze Age shipwrecks means, hey, this area was used, regardless of a lack of protection, human ingenuity. People find a way, right? Which is pretty awesome. And so the archaeologists that I've worked with, they have a collection of over 200 artifacts that were surrendered by local fishermen. Either they were caught smuggling and trying to sell them, or, some great local community members who said, hey, I found this stuff. I don't know what it is. I think it's important to our local history. So the collection of artifacts, it ranges in date from Bronze Age to Byzantine Crusader. It's an incredible scope of history. And it's all from this area in the northern anchorage that nobody's looked at before. So my project, we're going to go out on field work. We're going to survey using some side scan sonar, which is a great method. And we're going to target dive on sites that look interesting, try to kind of match up with the pottery that we already have, create some kind of time frame of when these wrecks happened, kind of a chronology of the harbor, I would say, over time, and how it was used.
Oh, it sounds very interesting. I have a stupid question. Is the harbor area, like the wider area, still used today as a harbor or anchorage? Or is it like, what's the geography like?
So the area is mostly used as kind of a historic tourist area. So
Okay.
over time, the harbor that was created by King Herod the Great, even though it was this amazing engineering marvel, over time it's actually sunk about 4 meters from where it was. So the system doesn't work quite as it used to in antiquity. There are little areas where ships will come in, local fishing vessels and things like that, but it's quite a protected site. And the town, it's a gorgeous coastal beach resort town, but it's also a really important part of history, and it's quite protected, which is great.
No, sounds great. Sounds very challenging for you to have to, I don't know, go through like from the Bronze Age to late medieval times, if I understood it correctly. Like, but it's, as you said, it would bear, I think, magnificent results in seeing the same location through thousands and thousands of years, and how it was used and how it was different or the same or all that. So I think it's exciting, and I hope we can get to chat about it in the future once you've done it, once you finish the PhD. But okay, so let's take it a step back then and go to your master's. You did your master's at the University of Oxford. And what was your thesis about then?
Yeah, so my master's thesis was in the same general area, so off the coast of Caesarea, in this little area called Bet Yanai. And it was basically an excavation report of a shipwreck that was found by a local swimmer. It was only 4 meters deep, about 100 meters offshore, and a local recent storm had churned the waters, churned the sand, and uncovered these massive pieces of marble. We're talking 6 meters in length, and some amazing, delicately carved capitals as well. Um, and so I was one of the lucky people that got to excavate the wreck, and my thesis acted as an excavation report. And I got to map where this ship was coming from, where this marble possibly was going, how big the wreck might have been, um, and the implications of some of the finds, which this wreck was, as of now, is the largest and oldest Roman marble carrier in the Eastern Mediterranean. We do have a problem with, maybe not a problem, but there is a trend in archaeology where sometimes certain places will have more sites just because they have more people looking. Okay, I'd say that it's more about funding and public interest, but also access to materials and tools. So the Western Mediterranean does have a lot more examples of these Roman marble carriers. The Eastern Mediterranean in the Imperial period, which is where we dated this wreck to, only has 3, and this is the largest and oldest one of them. And so it's really adding some valuable data to these trends and, representing the Eastern Mediterranean in Roman history more, I would say.
All right, wait, hold up. I have a lot of questions now. Okay, so we're talking about a ship that was carrying marble.
Yes.
And were they like architectural features or just the stone to be constructed into something?
Sorry.
All right.
Yes, so these were architectural features. We had multiple large, around 6 meter pieces in length that were very rough hewn, and we think they were going to be columns. We had an architrave, and we also had column capitals. So we do believe that these were going to be used for some kind of magnificent building, perhaps a theater. Whatever it was going to be quite a magnificent piece. The area of Roman Palestine where this ship was actually doesn't have any native marble, just limestone. But if you put plaster over limestone, it creates the same effect as marble, really. It looks quite the same. So you have to ask the question, why are people spending this much money and this much time and, this danger of crossing over the sea to import this marble for these buildings? And the answer to that lies in cultural shifts at the time. So that the Severan dynasty with Septimius Severus, he was the first Roman emperor that hailed from North Africa, and his wife was Syrian. So there was definitely a cultural shift of these areas having more of a real connection to Rome. They produced an empire from the East for the first time. And there was that same pride in return. So starting with Septimius Severus, but most of the Severan emperors had these really large building projects where they brought marble from the West into the East to say, I'm proud of this area. This area is Roman. It's really an incredible thing. And expense didn't really matter. And
of course.
and it's quite inefficient, you could say, but it was just, to show this area is Roman.
Yeah. And I mean, on the one hand, it's inefficient, it's expensive, and it's all that. But on the other hand, you can be a Roman consul and you can be like, this marble is from X location. And that's, a sign of strength and wealth. And so I think when you have the money to do it, you do it. And when
Absolutely.
You're trying to imitate the architecture, I think it makes a lot of sense. But no, it's very exciting. So you said that the area that the wreck was found didn't have like a city or like a magnificent enough city for those columns to go there.
Yes, we have a couple theories on where the marble could have been going. So we looked at the carvings of the capitals mostly. There have been some absolute great books, great studies that go into incredible depth on changes in style over time in these beautiful carvings. And through some research, there are three sites that, with the direction that the ship was going and where it was when it wrecked, that we think it might have been going to. So it could have been going south to Ashkelon, which was quite a big city, with marble being imported at the time. It could have been heading to Caesarea itself, which was quite nearby. Caesarea didn't have as much of the marble imported at the time, but the project was starting. This could have been at the beginning of the project for sure. Or it could have actually been going quite inland to Scythopolis, where it would have been going to Caesarea first and then to this magnificent city of Scythopolis, which had opulent displays of marble. Even for being so inland, it made it even more prestigious that this marble was here, right? That it was transported across the sea and then by land into this inland area that was just absolutely bedecked in marble.
All right. Yeah, no, that's great. So when you say you studied like the carvings of the marble, doesn't mean that this is a technical question, but when you excavated it, because it was under the sand, did that preserve the shape of it? Because I imagine marble deteriorates in water. No? I don't know. Does it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, waves, it's think of sea glass, think of a stone. Everything gets softened over time with the waves, right? But we do know that these pieces of marble have been under for quite some time. This area is very close to shore. People swim there every day. And so at least for the past couple hundred years, this has been under the sand. We do have some evidence that the wreck has been surfaced before because there are materials that are much more likely to be damaged by exposure to the sea than marble. We found a coin as part of the wreck, which was really helpful for dating purposes.
Wow.
It was bronze, but it was stuck in a concretion. It was very hard to get out. I left that to the technical experts. It's not me. I'm not a conservation expert. But when we did get it out, it was very, very eroded. And these concretions form with repeated exposure to the water and to the salt of the ocean. And they have to go through a process known as desalination, a lot of artifacts that we recover, which slowly removes the salt from the water of these artifacts so that when we want to study them and display them, they don't warp when we take them out of the water after being in there for so long. So the fact that this coin was so degraded shows that it was probably cycled to the surface quite a few times. And the marble itself was actually in great condition. It's the details are really stunning and beautiful. So it definitely, the sea was kinder to the marble than it was to the coin.
Oh, wow. No, that's super interesting, actually. And I mean, sorry if you told me and I missed it, but do you know where the marble came from?
Yeah, no, I haven't mentioned it yet. So, so figuring that out was quite a process. So the lab work was quite backed up. We do have experts that will look at the marble, look at the grain, and the veining and everything really under quite a detailed microscope and can tell you exactly what kind of marble it is. But as a master's student, I kind of had to do it myself, just with my eyes, which was, you're writing this thesis in 3 months and you have all the raw data and they say, make what you can out of it. So that was probably the most challenging part of my thesis. But thankfully, I did narrow it down, first based on the color and grain. And then I looked at sources of what quarries were active at the time, which ones would have made the most sense. And I narrowed it down to Prokinesos, which is in modern-day Turkey. And thankfully, the lab results came back and I was right.
Wow.
But I was very scared. I was very scared to do that. I'm not a geologist in any way. I don't really have training with any of that. But again, there are some great books out there that are great resources for that.
Wow. But no, that's super impressive. You're telling me that, just by in the macro scale of your eye, you were able to pinpoint the location of the quarry that the marble came from, and then science confirmed. That's wow. That's
Well, thank you. It's my best achievement, I think, out of the thesis. But
it's quite impressive. So, okay, so right. So I'm gonna ask the difficult question, but is it published? Is it gonna be published?
Actually, it is going to be published.
Okay.
I'm presenting at a conference. You guys did an episode with them, I think. The
Oh, the
DEGUA.
Cuba. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
So
in Georgia, then.
yep.
Oh,
So that's in just a couple of weeks, actually. So I'm presenting our research on the ship there, and then we're going to get published through that. So it's been a long ride. It's been 2 years, but finally, yeah, it's going to get published. I'm really, really
fantastic.
excited.
Okay, I'll tell the Guva people to publish it fast, edit it fast.
I
That sounds
appreciate that.
exciting. That sounds exciting because I don't think no, but you don't get to hear about a lot of marble found underwater, especially Imperial marble. I don't know, in the Eastern Mediterranean at least, that I keep an
Yes.
eye out mostly. And you said it's one of 3 shipwrecks?
Yeah, one of 3 Roman marble carriers from the Imperial period in the Eastern Mediterranean. There are actually a lot of marble carriers in the Western Mediterranean. Parker has a great catalog of like 73 ships, which is amazing. But only 30 or 33 of them, they're able to find out which quarry they came from. So I think this will add valuable data to those to the mix.
Absolutely. Did you find part of the boat itself, or was it just the marble?
No, unfortunately, we didn't. We were really hoping that the wood would have been trapped under that really heavy marble, right? The marble, all of it together, weighed 45 to 48 tons, we estimate,
Jesus.
which is so really, really heavy. So we were really hoping we were excavating about 2 meters under the marble and couldn't find any sort of trace of biological anything. We would really have loved to have a scrap of wood, dendrochronology, dating. It would have been super helpful. We're not sure if it was undercurrents that, as things shifted around, the lighter objects like the coin was exposed before, arguably even more so than the marble. So we're not sure if it's currents that washed things away or if the planks were eaten by animal life, or perhaps even some of it was looted. The wreck is quite shallow, and so it would have definitely been possible to go out on a barge or a little raft or a ship, dive down and take stuff. The marble was way too heavy. You can't pick that up. So we're not sure, but unfortunately, no biological material.
I mean, even the sinking of the ship. In there is a world, I think, where the capsize, if it was some kind of storm, and I don't know, the boat was turned to one side, and because marble was heavy, it just basically capsized it like the wrong way around, so the marble fell. I don't know. I just
no, absolutely,
because I think it's a very
stuff
heavy material, right? And it was, I don't know, how big was the boat? Was it like?
So we think it was actually only 18 to 20 meters. There's been some evidence that in the Roman Imperial period that they created specific types of boats just for large and heavy cargoes like that. There's examples of the Romans in Egypt creating specific boats that had the same size of a bow and a stern. So they were kind of short and squat, I guess. To transport obelisks as well as tree trunks. And when they constructed the harbor of Caesarea, King Herod the Great employed some long and flat barges for the large stones as well. So there could have been a specialized ship construction here, which would be very interesting. And I do talk about that a bit in my thesis, but unfortunately, there's no way to really tell for sure if we don't have any of that wood. It's mostly just based on the alignment that we have of the marble and sources that say that these ships were built for specific heavy object transport.
Okay. Oh, that's fantastic. Well, wow. That has been, I think it's super interesting. And I think it's also very interesting how you didn't just pick a subject and you did the same thing for your undergrad thesis, for your master's thesis, for your DPhil thesis. I think there's merit in being able to move between subjects so seemingly, and obviously doing a very good job at it, because I think it's the work you just described sounds very professional and very thoughtful and very good. So I think it takes skill and bravery to just say, you know what, I'll stop working with marble and ships now and go and study the hundreds of finds from the northern Anchorage that span millennia. So I think that's very nice. But okay, I will stop talking you about research. I want to ask more like the questions that we all ask ourselves. But you're in archaeology. We're in archaeology. We're all in this together. And the future doesn't seem very bright for us sometimes, in terms of, I don't know, labor market or anything like that. So where do you see your future as an archaeologist? Where do you see yourself going? What do you want to do after a DPhil in an ideal world?
So my dream job is with an agency that searches for missing in action, prisoner of war, downed planes, and ships all around the world where there's been conflict, and reunites forensic remains of service members with their families. It's something that my mentor of my first field school at the University of West Florida, it's something that she ended up going into, and it's the work that she does is so honorable and so wonderful. And I think at this point that would be my dream job. But you never know. You never know.
Oh, do they know that they're doing your dream job? Have you told them?
I have been in contact with her. Yeah.
Okay.
So I think she does know, hopefully. But if she's listening, Megan, you're amazing.
Okay. Well, that sounds exciting, dreadful, but exciting. Scary? Can I say scary? I don't know. That type of
Yeah, you can say
thing
scary.
scares me sometimes. I'm going to find missing people in,
Dead
I don't know,
bodies.
ships underwater. But it sounds very exciting at the same time. Very exciting. Okay, so I think first of all, there's an important distinction to be made here, because a lot of people would come to this podcast, and when I ask them, so what do you want to do in the future? They would immediately be like, I want to go into a postdoc. I want to be a professor somewhere. And that's good, and that's fine, and that's very nice. But there's also the people who come here and they say, you know what, I'm into academia, but I don't know if I need to stay in academia. And doing a PhD doesn't mean I want to do this forever. And as you said, sometimes it's difficult to admit it, because you are constantly surrounded by people who want to stay in academia and want to stay in research. And sometimes it feels like, you're downgrading-ish, like, which you're not, obviously. So I think it's important for you to say, because there's so many people who feel that way, and they don't necessarily need to stay in academia, and they're very happy with doing a PhD or doing a master's, and then using their skills, as you said, to do something else, to, I don't know, help the world and make a change. So I think that it's very honorable, and you shouldn't be afraid to say it.
Well,
Which
thank
obviously
you.
you're not. Obviously you're not, but I think more people need to hear it, and that academia doesn't mean research only, and that's it. There's other options out there. So
Absolutely.
is this agency, so is this, you said it's an international agency. So are you based wherever you want, or are you based wherever they take you? How does it work?
So there are agencies like this in multiple countries. So there's one in the States that works out of Hawaii, does a lot of work in Pearl Harbor. Finland has an amazing program that's very similar as well. So it would really depend. I'm very lucky in that I have my American citizenship and I'm getting my Greek citizenship. And so anywhere in Europe or the States, or maybe even here in the UK, who knows? But I really like the idea of it, and I'd love to help people wherever I end up.
That's fantastic. Yeah. So I think we covered 3 very exciting topics that are different, and I think it's interesting in this, because in this podcast is usually one topic, and we've talked about your DPhil work, we talk about your master's work, which is very different, and your future dreams, which is also very different, which is fantastic. So I would like to thank you very much for being on this podcast with me, for sharing, and I want to wish you all the best in whatever you do, and I hope your dream comes true and you do get that job. And for everyone listening, thank you for being here for another episode of the MARE Podcast, and I'll see you all in 2 weeks. Bye.
Bye.